And it's presidential debate number 3 in Boca. Will Obama keep up the momentum? Can Romney overcome amnesia? Will anyone from Boca be awake? It's the early bird special on Say Anything. Well, it's the Halloween season, and you've heard of The Walking Dead. There's something even worse, the walking undecided. These vague voters wreak havoc from poll to poll. Can one debate get them to make up their indecisive minds? Here now to discuss this are Jamal Simmons, Democratic consultant, and Sabrina Schaeffer, Executive Director of Independent Women's Forum. Welcome to the show, you guys.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So tonight's debate is focusing on foreign policy. Yeah. I wonder, do voters really give a damn about foreign policy? Let's be real. Do they?
Well, the polls show that they don't, but I think that it actually could be the sleeper issue of the campaign season. I mean, the reality is that this is suddenly percolating, and there's a lot that is important about it, and I'm hoping that something more comes out of it from tonight.
Yeah, I think people care about strength, right? Like, they want a president who's going to be commander-in-chief, who's going to be strong, who's going to sit there and say what he thinks and lay it out. They want to see consistency. They want to see leadership. And so whatever the issue is, and particularly on foreign policy, because it's really one issue where people sort of outsource that to the president, right? Like, most people aren't sitting around thinking about the Israeli-Palestinian crisis unless something happens. So let the president manage that. So they want to get kind of a core feeling, okay, this person can handle the trouble, whatever pops up.
I know, but I keep hearing it's about the economy, it's about the economy. But when I've lived through the Bush administration, those 8 years, those horrible 8 years with him, I'm only saying this because I thought they were horrible. You may not agree with that. But, I mean, 2 wars have started. Nobody knows, no money to pay for it. One war is in the wrong country. I mean, the neocons are beating the drums for war. For 8 years, they're in that. And now people should be concerned about foreign policy because we don't want to get into a situation like that again.
Well, no one was thinking that 2 wars is a good thing. But, of course, the economy and our national security are sort of intricately linked. And I think Romney understands that. I think that that's what we're going to hear a lot about tonight. I mean, the fact is, if we don't have a strong economy here at home, that means trouble abroad. They're not separate. You know, we can't separate the two. We have our education system to consider, our energy policy to consider, immigration. These are all issues that, affect both our economy and our foreign policy.
Well, yeah, and I think the problem here for Mitt Romney is that George Bush had 8 years of this bam-bam rubble sort of foreign policy. Mitt Romney, what he's been talking about, is somewhat the same. It's kind of clumsy. Remember, he went over to Great Britain last summer. He insulted the British in terms of the Olympics. He went to Israel. He insulted the Palestinians. He
said that Russia was the biggest threat that the world has known right now. I mean,
right, so it's sort of clumsy. And then when you start talking about what's going on in the wars, he wants to arm the Syrian rebels. We don't know who these people are. He wants to start giving them guns all of a sudden. He wants to arm the Syrian rebels. He wants to, stay in Afghanistan longer. All these different things. So his first kind of default position is to go into a fighting crouch. And I think that people need a president. We picked this president because we thought we needed somebody who would be a little bit more thoughtful about what we were doing before we started fighting it.
Yeah, but we also have seen what's happened when you don't have, the kind of, enthusiasm for what needs to be done in terms of surrounding yourself with with good advisors. I mean, the fact is Obama had no foreign policy experience. His most important sort of foreign policy accomplishment had been going on a CODEL with Senator Lugar, and that was a serious problem.
But besides sending jobs to China, what is Romney's experience with foreign policy?
Well, he doesn't. This is the problem for any governor, but he has shown that as an executive, both in the governorship as well as in business, he knows how to surround himself with the right people. I think he understands where we need to go with it.
I read today that 17 out of the 24 people that are in his foreign policy brigade worked for George Bush.
I think you're right.
So is that good? That's a good thing, Jamal?
Yeah, probably not. And I think you talk about the people who are around our president. I mean, Hillary Clinton has been just a phenomenal Secretary of State. Right. So for people to argue, I mean, and she's probably his most important foreign policy advisor. So I think having important people around you as president is important, and this president has them. Leon Panetta, who was Bill Clinton's chief of staff, head of the CIA, now the Defense Department. These are pretty strong, serious folks.
Well, we all remember from the last debate how, Romney embarrassed himself on Libya. Did he not? Is he going to do that again?
I think he overstepped or overplayed his hand, if you will, but I don't know if he embarrassed himself. And I think that there's a lot to question the president on. I mean, the fact is, I think there's a lot of unanswered questions about what happened in Libya and why it took so long to get the full story. And I think that the Romney's correct to push him on those things.
Well, then here's the
It's
problem.
a legitimate area, I think, right, Jamal?
Yeah, but this goes back to the core problem about why Mitt Romney's not ready. He's sort of a shoot first, think later kind of guy. And so the first thing that happened when the Libyan crisis erupted, is he didn't take a breath. He didn't sort of sit back. At midnight, the night that the thing happened, before we even knew what happened to the ambassador, he gave this statement that ultimately he and his staff had to kind of walk back a little bit. And then you're at the debate, and he goes out there and says, oh, well, the president never called it an act of terrorism. Well, actually, if you look at the videotape, the president did call it an act of terrorism.
And Candy
he just
Crowley
hadn't quite thought through all of his positions.
Candy Crowley took a lot of flack for that from her own station, I believe, and certainly from Fox News. Do you think she deserved that?
Well, I think that's important that we always push back on both candidates to make sure that they're telling the truth. And I think that these moderators, they're sort of, in a hard place here, because if they don't push hard enough, then everyone says, oh, you're too soft on this candidate. And if they do push too hard, then they're getting the same kind of pushback.
What does Obama have to do besides remind everybody that he captured bin Laden?
Yeah, he's got to be the boss, and then he's got to talk about why this is important going forward. Every election is about the future, and so, getting bin Laden is a very important kind of milestone. It's a validator for what he can do going forward. And I think people want to know, what are you going to do about Iran? What are you going to do about China? What's going to happen in the Middle East? People do want to have some sense of where you're headed.
Do you think people trust him to do the right thing?
I think people do basically trust him.
I don't think so, and that's why this is a great moment for Governor Romney. The fact is that when you're talking about foreign policy, you can be sort of above the partisan fray. You can say, you know what, actually as Commander-in-Chief, I am the leader not of Republicans or conservatives or liberals or Democrats. I'm the leader of Americans, and that's where this is a great opportunity for him to come in there, not be nasty, not be petty the way I think some people perceive the last debate, but to come in there and say, I know what's best for American foreign policy. I'm going to be tough when I need to be tough.
Based on that, though, what is he basing his knowledge of foreign policy on?
That's what we're going to have to wait tonight and see. I think he's going to have to really communicate that.
But think about it objectively. Here you have somebody who's been dealing with foreign policy for 4 years. He's bin Laden. He has been very good on foreign policy, Obama has, for sure. Maybe he made a couple of missteps. Against Romney, who has no foreign policy experience whatsoever. Why would I vote for him?
But let's remember that then Senator Obama had no experience.
But that was then. This is now.
Yeah, but he has experience, but he hasn't been doing such a great job.
Yes,
I mean, look,
he has.
the Middle East is really up in arms, and Russia and China, they don't take us seriously, and we have
We're out of Iraq. We're getting out of the Afghanistan war is ending. We're out of Iraq. We got Osama bin Laden. We have, we're managing huge crises all over the world. This president has done a pretty good job. I think it's hard to argue.
And the other thing about it is that they want to keep the military budget at this all-time high when the military itself doesn't even say they need the money. How does that jive with his economy? Romney wants to cut on social services, but God forbid the military, and they don't even want the money. That sounds stupid to me.
Well, first of all, just to respond real quickly, I think that bringing home troops is not synonymous with winning a war, and so we need to be clear about how we are measuring our success in Iraq, first of all. And I'm not so sure that we're doing so well there right now.
How long would you like us
in the first place?
But how long would you like us to stay there?
No, I think that we do need to bring the troops home, but I think that we need to have a very clear plan forward, and I don't see that coming from this administration. But of course, I don't think that the Defense Department is immune to cuts. I think that there's absolutely waste there the way there is in every other agency.
Okay. Now, at a rally on Friday, Obama accused Romney of having a bad case of Romnesia, changing positions like the wind. Watch.
If you say you're for equal pay for equal work, but you keep refusing to say whether or not you'd sign a bill that protects equal pay for equal work, you might have Romnesia. Here's the good news. Obamacare covers pre-existing conditions.
There have been a lot of these catchphrases. I was reading in the Times today, the malarkey came up, Romnesia.
Binders full of women.
Binders full of women. And also the Republicans have hope is not a strategy.
Right.
The shrinking campaign, they have a lot of stuff, and so do the Democrats. Do you think it's such a good idea to kind of reduce it to these phrases? Is that a good way to get your message across?
Well, it's certainly, possibly a good soundbite, but I think it depends who it's coming from, who is the messenger. And when it's coming from the president, when that kind of, casual banter, I'm not sure that does actually resonate so well. The fact is, you want maybe, when when James Carville said it's the economy stupid, it was okay because it was coming from Carville, not Bill Clinton, and I think that helped.
You mean the word
perspective.
stupid?
Yeah, you know,
stupid.
yeah, the idea that the president would be talking that way. This is somebody who's supposed to be, you know, having a little bit more gravitas, right?
Well, you know, they're talking to different people. You know, Mitt Romney's talking to older suburbanites, you know, folks who are a little bit more settled. The president's trying to animate younger voters, get them to show up and vote, get them to feel connected to the process.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're talking to younger people who aren't as connected, you got to try and make it plain, as they say in the church.
Right, and Romnesia works for me. What do you think about when when Romney wants to cut social safety net? We call it a romputation. You like it? And those poor people who are out in the street are called romputees. We'll be right back in just a minute.